All right, so welcome back, everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play Perch. Now, Perch is an area control game. So you're going to want to control various areas to gain victory points in this game. So like, for instance, this is one of the areas you can go to and you can place your birds at in order to score victory points, okay? Now, if you have the most birds of your color at a location, you're gonna score the highest amount, as in you're gonna score the top value, whatever that may be. So if green was here, for instance, and had 2 birds, and red had 1, green would be the highest, so he'd score 5 points. Red would score 0 points. Yes, on this particular tile, the Lonely Elm Tree, coming in second place means you get no points at all. But if, for instance, green had 3 birds on here, and red had 2, and black had 1, for example, then green would get 5 points at the end of the first round, red would get 0 points at the end of the first round, and black would get 2 points at the end of the first round. So that's how that's going to work. Now, each tile is different. Each tile is going to score different points. Okay? So let me put these back. Hold on. Okay. So, for instance, this one up here, the scented pine trees, the highest, being the player who has the highest amount of birds, is only going to net you 3 points. But if you come in second place, you're going to score 5 points. Isn't that interesting? And then 2 points for third place. So that's how that's going to work. Now, some of these areas have nests on them, okay? And if you're the first player who puts a bird on a tile, like this one here, the great ash tree, and you're the first player to put a bird here, you get to put your bird right into the nest. Now, this is significant because the nest counts as a bird for that player. So green is here, so green actually has 2 birds here, not 1. So that means if this was the equation at the end of the first round, green would score the 5 points because he has 2 birds, and red would score 3 points because red has only 1 bird here. So nests will count as extra victory points. But that's not the only thing that counts as extra victory points. If you have a bird nest on top of a bird, that bird nest will also count as 1 additional bird for scoring purposes as well. So that's something to note. So there's a couple of different ways you could add birds without actually adding birds in order for the area control, which is pretty nice for sure. So you're going to be scoring points for controlling areas. Each tile is potentially going to be scored as long as there's birds there to be scored. Now, that said, if there's ever a tie for a tile, so for instance, if this has only 1 green and only 1 red on it, this tile here, this is a tie. That means both players get 0 points. Ties mean no points among players who have ties. Now, I'm not going to stack these at this exact moment, but let's say both of these players had 2 birds of their color, and black had 1 of his birds on here, okay? Well, these 2 are still tied, so they'd get 0 points. But because black has the second amount of points, he'd still get 0 points. He wouldn't get the 2 here because he's the second highest player. Okay, that's how that's going to work. Now, in another case, if it was that one over there, the scented pine trees, if he was the second highest, so let's go over there, grab that tile, and quickly just do this, and say that's 2, and that's going to be 2 there, and a black's got 1 on here, okay? So if this was the case, these players would be tied because they each have 2 birds. So they'd score 0 points. But because black is on here and has the second highest amount of birds, or 1 bird, since he's the second highest on the scented pine trees, he's going to score 5 points. That's pretty nice, right? So some interesting choices to be had here, to be made when placing out your birds. There's definitely some interesting choices to be sure, but that's how scoring is going to work. Now, there is a total of 4 phases in this game, okay? 4 phases in this game. And there's a total of 5 rounds in this game. So you're going to score points at the end of each of the 5 rounds, okay? And while there is area control here for victory points, you can also get victory points for the fountain, which we'll explain later. You can also get victory points for birds that you have in the plaza, which we'll explain later. And you might get some points if you control some of these creatures here as well, or if you have the highest birds in a flock. If you have the highest amount of birds that makes up the flock, you could get a lot of points that way too. And of course, if there's a tie for any of these things, like if there's a tie for the highest flock, then still 0 points is awarded at the end of the games if there's a tie even for highest flock. So that's how that's going to work. So 4 phases. So the first phase that we have is the migration phase. The second phase that we have is the recruit phase. The third phase is going to be the perch phase, okay? And then the fourth phase is going to be the upkeep phase. So let's first explain the migration phase. Now we have this bag here, okay? And so when you are preparing for the migration phase, what you're going to do is you're going to put 2 birds, okay, for each color in the bag, okay? So that's what we'll do. We'll put 2 colors for each of the players that are playing are going to go into this bag, okay? That is how the upkeep phase, the migration phase is going to work. That's all you do for the migration phase. There might be some tiles that might add some more birds, of course, to this bag as well for the migration phase, and we'll get to the one tile that is an example for that in this video later, but that's what you're going to do for the migration phase. All right, so then let's talk about the recruit phase. During the recruit phase, by turn order, starting with the first player, what they're going to do is they're going to take 2 birds from the roost. So this thing here, which has all these birds in it, is known as the roost, okay? And so they're going to take 2 birds of their color out of the roost, and then they're going to take 2 random birds from this bag. It could be completely different colors, and that is perfectly fine. And look, we got black and we got red. We didn't get a single green, okay? And then the next player will draw in turn order their 2 birds for the obviously for the recruit phase, and then they will draw 2 birds from the migration bag as well. Oh, and look, they also didn't draw their color either. And then black will do the same thing and grab a couple of birds, and then grab 2 more birds from this bag, okay? This migration bag. And so now they each have 4 birds, okay? That's everything they do for the recruit phase. So then there's phase 3, which is going to be the perch phase. This is where we start actually taking our actions. During the perch phase, 1 bird at a time, 1 person at a time, is going to choose one of these 4 birds to place. And yes, they're not only placing their colors, but they're placing enemy birds as well. So you can use this to your advantage. Like, you might see your opponents vying for control of an area, and one player is higher than the other by just 1, and it's black. He's higher than red. You'd be like, well, I'm going to put red up there on that spot as well. And so now red and black are tied, and they get nothing. 0 points. That's the idea of basically using your turn to place your enemy birds. And you must place these birds. This isn't optional. Once per turn, you must place a bird. So while you have 2 of your own birds that you definitely want to get out, and you might have more of yours, it just didn't work that way for this migration phase, but you might have some of your own birds that you want to get out so you can get victory points, but you're still going to have to place out your opponent's birds as well on your turn, okay? So let's see. Maybe we should do some demonstrations here. All right, so let's say green is going to take his turn, and he's going to go ahead and place one of his green birds out, okay? And let me just put it like that, and he's going to place it over here on the doghouse, okay? That's his turn. That's what he does on his turn. That's all he can do right now. We'll talk about bonus actions later, but there might be some bonus actions that you can do later on your turn. So that would be his turn. Then let's say red is going to go, and red is going to go ahead and place his bird in this location here at the precariously hanging nest. So that's what he's going to do. There we go. And then black is going to place one of his birds out, and he's thinking he's going to go to this lonely elm tree, okay? And let me grab one of these discs here, just because they're useful. Okay. And then player 1 gets to go again and place out a bird. So let's see here. Maybe it'd be nice to control this area. So he's going to place out his bird here. Okay? Like that. Then red goes, and red's already got nice control of that area, so maybe the red player wants to place out, I don't know, his red bird at this location, if I get the thing on here. There we go. Maybe he wants the cat, so he's going to go there. And then, you know, the black player, they're going to take their turn, and maybe, you know, maybe they kind of want the hawk, and so they're going to go there. Okay? They're going to go to the hawk's nest, and red's going to go to the country house, and green player's going to go to the dog house. Now, of course, it's green player's turn again, but now he has only his enemy birds that he wants to place out. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to place it here, because I'm not too worried about red controlling this area. Okay? And we'll explain that momentarily, why that is. But yes, let's say green decides to put red there. Okay? And then, let's say, for instance, you know, red goes, and red is going to place out green at, oh, I don't know. Let's see. Let's just say he doesn't want black to get the hawk's nest. So he places green here. So, like so. And then black goes, and you know, he doesn't want red player to get the country house area, so he puts green there. Okay? And then I go, and, you know, and I decide I'm going to put black on, oh, I don't know, this area up here. I think, like, oh, yeah, let's place him there. So let's say we just place black here at this location. Okay? So now he's got control of that area, and he has 2 birds there. And then red's going to choose a location, and let's just say red doesn't want green to score that many points. So, but you know, that doesn't work, right? So, because he's got 2 birds there. So, so maybe he just places black at this location. 3 points isn't so bad. And then, well, we want to keep at least one of those open for various reasons. But and then, you know, black's gonna place red somewhere. So maybe, you know, black places red at, oh, I don't know, this location as well, because there's a reason for that. So yeah, we'll place them there. It doesn't want to stay now. Hold on. It's hard to do with the camera sometimes. There we go. Okay, so then that's the end, for instance, just as some examples of how the perch phase is going to work. Now, once the perch phase is done, then you go to the upkeep phase. The first part of the upkeep phase is actually scoring points, and you do them one at a time. So black has the most at this location. So black player is going to get 3 points. I don't have black's disc out for some reason. I have blue's out instead. So we'll just pretend black is blue for this video for now. And then green would go, and you do, so when you do scoring, you always do the leftmost column first, and you work your way down. Then you do the one that's next, and then the one that's after that. So this tile will always be scored last. This tile will always be scored first. So then green has the most here. So green's going to get 5. Okay, well, look at that. And then green has the most here, so green's going to get 1 point for that. And red has the most here, so red's going to get 5 for that, for instance. 5 points. But black is here too, so black is going to get 3 points. So now, black is actually right on top of green right there. And then no points are awarded here, because it's a tie. Okay? No points are awarded here, because no one's there. Black is going to get 5 points for control of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this is a tie, so no points are awarded there. So that's the first part of the upkeep phase. For the second part of the upkeep phase, you'll decide turn order for the next round, okay? It's always going to be the player that's highest up on victory points that's going to go first. Then it's second highest, and then it's third highest. So in this case, black would be going first, because black has the most points. Then, so yeah, black would be going first. So black would be there. He's going first. And green is going second. And red is going third. Okay? Now, if there was ever a case where one of the discs was on top of the other disc for this part of the game, for turn order, it would be the player who was on the bottom that is still highest up, because they got there first. So in this case, even though red is on top of green, black would still go first, green would still go second, and red would still go third, if that was the case. Okay? That was the equation. All right. So that's the second part of the upkeep phase, is just delegating turn order based on victory points. Now, the third part of the upkeep phase is when abilities activate. So some of these tiles have abilities that activate during the upkeep phase. And so once again, you do them based on column, working your way across just like you would. This one does not have an ability. This one does not have an ability. This one, the doghouse, it has an ability, okay? So the controlling player becomes the dog controller. So since green is the controlling player, he gets the dog, okay? So let me put this back. So now I get the dog. So let's just kind of separate these a little bit. So now green player has the dog for the next round. He has access to the dog, and we'll explain how the dog works. We'll explain how these potentially work too. But now he's got the dog. But because, so then let's do this. So there's another tile here that also has a upkeep activation. So this precariously hanging nest, it says, if this location has 4 or more birds, send all birds on this location to the plaza. Okay? Well, remember, how many birds do you think is on this tile? If your answer is 4, that would be incorrect. There's actually 5 birds, because the nest still counts as a bird, even though it wouldn't actually be going anywhere. So regardless of the case, it's still more than 4, and it's still 4 or more. So all of these birds are then removed from the tile, and they are placed in the plaza, okay? That's how that's going to work, okay? So they're gone, and now this is empty again. So while this can score you 5 points for having the majority here, The problem is putting your birds here does mean that you're losing them, most likely, because they're going to make sure that happens. Other players will make sure that's going to happen. But that's how that tile is going to work. Okay, and then this would activate if this wasn't a tie. But basically what it is the controlling player begets the cat, okay? But nobody's getting the cat because there's a tie. This one actually activates during migration, so we'll get to that later. This one doesn't have an ability. And then the hawk's nest. Once again, there's a tie, so nobody's getting the hawk, okay? Okay, and then let's talk about this. So then that would be it for the upkeep phase. Would be it for the upkeep phase, except you will move this marker up 1 for the next round, so you know that you're entering the next round, okay? But let's explain this. So it says during migration. So then migration would be next because this would be the beginning of the second round. And so migration is always the first phase. And so it says here the controlling player places 1 additional bird from their flock into the migration bag, okay? So basically they're going to get to take out another one of their birds if they have the majority here. I mean, if they have the majority here. If they have the majority on this tile, they get to take out an additional bird to put into the bag. That's the benefit to having the control of this area. But as you'll notice, the person who's in third place also gets the most victory points here. So there's definitely some interesting things with this tile. You could have the most to get the least amount of points, but to have access to that awesome ability, or you could have the least to get 5 points. So that's kind of cool. I like this tile a lot. Definitely adds some interesting choices to the game. But that's how that's going to work. You just get an extra, bird here in this bag, increasing the chances that more of your color is going to be drawn from the bag because now there's more. Now, at the end of the game, if there's ever any additional birds in this bag that weren't utilized, because that might happen, especially with that ability, because you still only draw 2 at a time for each player. Any birds that are left over in this bag will be placed into the plaza, okay? So make note of that now. Okay, so let me explain how the rest of scoring is going to work. So I've already explained how you're going to score victory points via the area control, but I haven't really explained how you're going to score victory points at the fountain and at this location here. Now, you're going to get 1 point for every bird you have in the plaza. So, if you have a few birds, you might get a few points. You're not going to get a lot, but you get a few if you have some birds in the plaza. Now, whenever you get to send a bird to the fountain, you have to basically place it at the bottom level of the fountain, okay? You can't place it at the top until there's support. So there's a line that goes from here to here and a line that goes from here to here. So if there was 2 birds at this location, a player could put a bird here because it has support from these 2 areas. So this spot has support from these 2 areas, and this spot has support from these 2 areas, for instance. So that's how you're going to get your birds higher up. Then for each bird you have in each level of the fountain is how many points you're going to get. So the lowest part of the fountain, you're only going to get 1 point for each bird that's here. But if you had multiple birds, if you had more than 1 bird at the second level, that's 2 points per bird. If you had more than 1 at this level, that's 3 points per bird. If you had more at this level, if you had 2 at that level, that's 4 points per bird. And if you manage to get your bird at the highest level, that's 6 points for that bird. So that's how that's going to work, okay? How do you get birds into the fountain? Well, there's a couple of ways, okay? So let's explain the dog ability. So on your turn, if you have a bonus action, you are allowed to use 1 bonus action per turn. So if you had 4 different bonus actions that you could play in 1 round, you could use them, but only 1 bonus action per turn, okay? So that's how that's going to work. And if you use these creatures here, once you use them, you must flip the card over so you know that you used the card for the round. So I can't use the dog multiple times in the same round, only once. But if I had all of these creatures, if I had the dog, the hawk, and the cat, If I had all 3 of them, I could play all 3 of these in one round, okay? So that's how that's going to work. That's going to be the first type of bonus action that you're going to get, okay? That's going to be the first one you have access to, is these creatures, okay? So let me explain how this is going to work. So first of all, the dog is always going to start at the dog house, okay? So when you decide you're going to activate the dog ability, the dog is always going to be here because that's where the dog house is, okay? Then what you get to do is you get to move the dog to any one adjacent location. And then you can move one bird, one location in any direction away from where the dog stops. If the direction is off the board, send the bird to the fountain. So you can send the dog to a location and then basically remove the bird from that location. And you can even remove your own birds if you so desire. And there might be some strategic reasons to do so, like to destroy ties so that way you can score points or stuff like that. So that's something you can do. Now you can move the bird to another location and that's fine. Or you can move the bird off of the location completely and it would go here to the fountain. So that's one of the ways birds will end up on the fountain is with the dog. Okay? Now, obviously the cat will always start at the country house and the hawk will always start at the hawk's nest. Let's explain the hawk ability next. So because the hawk is a bird and it can get around, it can go to any tile you want. You can move the hawk to any location other than the current location. So the hawk can't activate its ability here because that's where it is. But then you can send one bird from the location where the hawk stops to the fountain. So the dog just moves a bird out of the way, maybe even to the fountain. The hawk always removes a bird and sends it to the fountain. So you can remove an opponent's bird and send it to the fountain. You can remove your own bird and send it to the fountain as well, and that's fine. And remember, you do get points in the fountain. So it's not a complete mean thing to do. They're losing points here potentially because they're losing birds here, but they're still going to get some points here. So, it's not as nasty as it seems, but that's how that's going to work. You just get to, so if the hawk goes here, he could send one bird to the fountain, and that's how that would work, okay? The cat. So the cat can move to an adjacent location with the most birds, okay? So it can't move to any location. It can only move to an adjacent location, and this is adjacent, this is adjacent, this is adjacent, and this is adjacent to the country house, okay? So the cat can move to any one of those locations, here, 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 or here. It can't move there, it can't go there, because it's too far away, okay? But it still can't go to just any place. It has to go to one of the locations that has the most birds. So right now, the one that has the most birds of any particular color, right. So, yeah, the location with the most birds. So it's not necessarily any one color. It's all the birds at that location, okay? So let's see, there's 2 birds there. There's 1 bird there. He can't go there because he's there. There's 2 birds here. So there's actually a tie for highest amount of birds right now. And so when there is a tie for highest amount of birds where the cat can go, the cat can go. The player who has control of the cat can choose which of the tiles to send the cat to, okay? Because, the cat's hungry and it wants to go to the place with the most birds, It's just logical. Okay, so then what is going to happen is, so from the location where the cat stops, you get to send 1 bird to the fountain and move 1 bird to one location in any direction. So, he could go here. He could send black to, the fountain. And he could send green to here or to there, for instance, as an example. Or even this direction, which means to the fountain as well. So that's how that's going to work. So those are just some of the potential animals that you might play with. This is like just the starter animals that you might play with, okay? The starter tiles. But that's how that's going to work. So there's a couple of things I still haven't explained. So when you do manage to get to the 4th round, you're going to have access to these bird houses, and you're going to get 1 per player, okay? You only get 1 bird house for the whole game, okay? Only 1. So basically what bird houses do, besides acting as an additional bird that you're putting it onto for scoring purposes and stuff, but bird houses protect your birds, okay? They protect your birds from creatures. You know how these creatures are moving your birds around and they're sending your birds to the fountain? Well, these creatures, they can't touch your birds if they're in a birdhouse. So if I had a stack of birds, okay, all right, if I had a stack of birds and a birdhouse on the stack, I'm protecting all of my birds that are on the stack in the birdhouse because they're all in the birdhouse safe and sound, okay? So they can't be affected by creatures, okay? That said, they could still be affected. From what I understand, they could still be affected by this because this is separate from creatures and lightning. So if you put your birdhouse on birds that are at this location, at the precariously hanging nest, you still lose the birds. So not wise to put your birdhouse there, okay? Now, placing a birdhouse is a free action. So this is another bonus action you could do on your turn. So you could choose to do this, and then if you had a creature, you could choose to do the creature on another turn. So that's the second bonus action that you could potentially do. Creatures are the first type of bonus, nests are the second bonus, and lightning is the third bonus action that you could take, okay? Those are the only 3 different types of bonus actions, but if you had 2 creatures, lightning, and a birdhouse you still hadn't placed yet, that's potentially 4 bonus actions that you could do in 1 round because you get 4 actions. Okay, so it protects from lightning as well, and we'll explain lightning momentarily, but a player who is trying to zap one of your birds with lightning can't touch your birds that are protected by a bird house, okay? So that's how that's going to work. So then there's lightning tokens. When you reach the 5th and final round, every player gets a lightning token, and what this does is it electrifies, it zaps 1 bird of your choice. It can be your bird, it can be your opponent's birds. It can't be birds protected by birdhouses, though. But you can zap one and then send it to the fountain. That's what these will do. You only get 1 of these as well. So you're only going to use 1 of these the whole game per player, okay? But basically, that's pretty much, I think, everything you need to know in order to at least play your first game of Perch. I think that's everything you need to know in order to play your first game of Perch. I hope this explains it. I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.